Now we'll talk about how to give documentation or docstring and the default value for the named tuple, right? So here, let's first import the named tuple itself. Now we'll see how to add the docstring to the named tuple. So it's very easy in one way. Let's say that here we have created a named tuple of point 2D. It has two coordinates, x and the y. So it has two property, x and the y. Now we can access point 2D dot doc, right? Like over here, if we'll write this point 2D dot doc, right? This will give me this as a documentation, right? But we can change it. We can say that represent a 2D Cartesian coordinates. So now this property will be changed, right? We can check that. We can check this. Now it has changed, right? Now we can even give the documentation for its own property. Like here, to get the doc value, we can say that point 2D dot x and then again doc and then change the value, same as for the y. And then when we check the help of point 2D, we'll get the documentation. Here we are saying that represent our 2D Cartesian coordinates, right? Here we have this x coordinate and y coordinate. So this is the data descriptions we are getting, right? Now we can even add the default value to the named tuple. We can use a prototype. First we can create a prototype. Like here, we are creating a vector named tuple. We have this 4x6, xy, x1, y1, x2 and y2, and then we have the origin of x and the y. Right, so this is the prototype we want to create. Now here, first what we are doing is we are giving the default value. So we are creating one vector object. It's called vector 0 origin, and then the origin value we have set as 0 and rest all the values are none. When we create this is what we are getting, right? So now we'll say that this is a prototype of our vector with the 0 origin. So to create a new vector, we can simply do vector 0 origin dot replace, and then we can give x1 y1 and x2 y2. We can remove, we can ignore origin x and the origin y, but because the default value is 0, so it will be 0 only. We can see that, right? But this works, there are other techniques using default, right? We can use the default, this attribute, right, to kind of create a prototype or give the default value, right? Here we know that function have this default attribute. Like let's say that here we have this function. In this function we have this three attribute, b and the c has the default value. If we'll do so, let's say that if I'll say function dot default, we'll get this 20 and 30. So 20 is for b and 30 is for c. So we are getting the default value. So here we just need to pass the 10, which is for value of a, and then we are getting the three object, right? We can also reinitialize this. So here I'm saying function dot default 20 30. If I'll do so, sorry, 200 and 300. If I'll do so, now we have changed it, right? So this is one way we can kind of change the default value of function. But how do we have to, like, how do we use this default parameter to this named tuple? We just need to change the value or this default value of this new method, right? So what we have to do is we just simply need to call vector dot new, and then we call the default, and then we set the default value, right? But there is one catch. Let's say that if you have this 10 default, or like if you have the 10 parameter but you are only defaulting the 2 parameter, which is less than the original number of default, so that 2 parameter will be changed for the last 2 parameter. Like over here, when we are saying vector dot new dot default and then we are saying 0 0, this means that 0 0 is 2 parameter. We are giving the default value for this 2 parameter, only the last one. So the last one is origin x and the origin y. So these two value will get 0 0 over here, right? And if you want to create a vector, we can simply rewrite it, right? It's rewritable. Or you can even create a vector without giving this origin x and the origin y value. It will be 0 0. We can see that, right? So here is the third vector we have, right? Let's say that if you want to set the default value for all the for all the parameter, right? You can simply call dot default. We can just create the tuple and then we can multiply with the length of the field value. We can access the field value with the vector dot field, and that's it. You'll set all the default value to 0. You can see that. Yeah, this is all the default value to 0. Yeah. So this is how we give the documentation and the default value to the named tuple. And yeah, this is it. Thank you very much.